So the last groups we're going to look at here is the primates. And primates originally evolved to be arboreal. So arboreal meaning they live in trees. Right, so back here. Primates is going to involve lemurs, tarsiers, the monkeys. So the monkeys here is a paraphyletic group, including this and these two groups. So these are the monkeys. The monkeys are going to have a tail. So we've got the New World monkeys, the Old World monkeys. And then from here down, we can see the apes. So the apes are going to typically be flat, grasping hands with nails, large brain, short jaws, forward-facing, opposable thumb. We do see that the monkeys as well as the apes have the opposable thumb. The apes generally have longer arms and shorter legs, except when you get to humans, where that starts to change when we get to walking on two legs. No tail in the apes, and flexible behaviors. So we're going to see different behaviors occurring in different groups in the apes. Down here, this group is going to be the hominins. So these are the human-like groups. So we have the genus Australopithecus, which is extinct, and then the genus Homo. And there were several different species inside of the genus Homo that are now extinct, and the only remaining Homo species is Homo sapiens, which is the humans. So some derived characters of humans. We have an upright posture, so I'm talking about hominins, including Australopithecus, would be upright posture, bipedal locomotion, meaning 2 feet. Larger brains, more capable of language, symbolic thought, artistic expression. We see the use of tools, although tool use has actually developed a little bit earlier. The reduced jaw bones and jaw muscles. So if you look at a human face versus a chimpanzee or a gorilla, we have a smaller jaw. Our face is a little bit flatter. The muscles that control our jaw a little bit smaller. The digestive tract gets a little bit shorter. And then it's interesting that humans and chimpanzees differ by about 19 genes. So humans and chimpanzees have about 98.2% of their DNA the same. And it's really about 1.8% of the DNA is actually different. And that's enough to create a difference between humans and chimpanzees. So hominins are the groups that are more closely related to humans than they are to chimpanzees. So we would have even more genetic similarity to hominins than we would to chimpanzees. So we think there are about 20 extinct species, and we in no way have this completely figured out. The earliest had to start to show reductions in the canine. So if you look at a human versus a chimpanzee, humans have smaller canine teeth. We have flat faces. We're bipedal, meaning we walk on 2 feet. And a lot of us can tell by the shape of the skull that we're bipedal. So the foramen magnum is the opening in the bottom of the skull. And in humans and hominins, it points down, indicating that the head was above the neck, which is a good indicator of being bipedal. So this is not a ladder. It's not like we kind of went from here to here to here to here to here. This was a large branching, and we really don't know all of the lineages. So we don't know how all of the lineages connect and how the branching patterns work. This you can see, these are older species, and then these were more recent species. But we actually think that Homo sapiens and Neanderthalensis are probably sister to each other, because there's some evidence of hybridization. And then we believe that these did develop from potentially Homo ergaster or Homo erectus, but we really aren't sure. So Australopithecus is a genus, and this is Australopithecus afarensis. And you can see these are some artist's renditions. We believe that these walked fully erect. And the phylogeny is really unresolved, but this would be a paraphyletic group because if we only talk about Australopithecus, we don't include the genus Homo, so that would be paraphyletic. We think that the brain was about 1/3 the size of humans. These were much smaller, only about a meter in size, and their brain was maybe the size of a softball. So these were more capable of arboreal locomotion. So these you can tell based on the skeleton. They were bipedal. There's evidence because we have found footprints, but we do believe that they were still capable of living in trees. So about 10 million years ago, the climate on Earth started to dry out. It became even a little bit more dry. And some of the forests that were on the planet started to retract and get smaller. And so arboreal locomotion wasn't necessarily as adaptive anymore because there were fewer places to live that were arboreal. So these arid environments, like arid means dry, became more inhabited by hominins. So we believe that bipedalism occurred around the same time as moving into these kind of dry, open plain lands rather than living in trees. However, it's not quite as simple as that. So just the idea that walking upright used to be thought that it would give you an advantage on a plane because you could see further, that's been mostly disproven. What we think is it's actually the energetics. So when you look at this bipedal human, the force that we press down on the earth with gets translated directly up into the hip. So all of the force that you use to step with helps you move forward. However, if you look at this maybe gorilla, something that's not truly bipedal, some of this force is not quite going to the hip. So some of this force isn't quite being used to move them forward. So energetically, walking bipedal might be better as far as energetics than walking on 4 limbs or knuckle walking like these ones do. And in a luscious forest, that may not have been a problem. Maybe there wasn't any restriction on food, but in an arid environment, an organism might need to be as energetically efficient as possible. And so that's what we think that bipedalism came out of this move to kind of dry environments, because it put a selective pressure on the energetics of walking. So that's just a theory, and it's what we currently think at the time. We also see evidence of tool use about 2.5 million years ago. And this is not only humans. So we know that chimpanzees will smash food with rocks. We know that chimpanzees can sometimes use sticks and leaves to poke them into ant hills to get ants out. Unfortunately, sticks and leaves don't fossilize well, so we don't have as much evidence of older tool use from like stick. Bones do fossilize well, and so we've been able to find bones that have cut marks on them, as well as stones like this that look like they've been used for spears or knives. The fossil evidence does indicate that this tool use happened before we necessarily grew our larger brain, so tool use could have been prior to the development of like the prefrontal cortex and the Homo sapiens that we see today. All right, so Homo is our genus. Homo means man. And there have been several different species inside of this genus Homo that existed on Earth before Homo sapiens. So Homo habilis, habilis means handy or able, so this is the able man. And this is named this way because of the stone tools that were found with these skeletons. Homo ergaster was fully bipedal. This was a large-brained hominid. They had long, slender legs and hip joints for walking. Straight femurs indicated that they didn't live in trees. Their bones are found where we believe were more arid environments. They started to show different sizes in the sexes, so the males were smaller. This helped to reduce male-to-male competition. And when this happens, you see more pair bonding. So males and females bonding together and staying together, and that helps to reduce competition. Homo erectus, erect means up tall, so we do agree that this was bipedal. And we think that this was one of the first to migrate out of Africa. And that's probably why we think that Erectus might have been an ancestor to Homo sapiens. Neanderthals are Homo neanderthalensis, so we believe that these were the most closely related to Homo sapiens, and we believe this because we think that there was gene flow between the two groups. So it's possible that Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis were able to hybridize and actually mate. So these might not have been completely separate species, but we're not 100% sure. And then we have Homo sapiens, which is us, so Homo means man. And then sapiens is wise. That's the name we gave ourselves. And we believe this is derived from Ergaster or Erectus. The oldest fossil of Homo sapiens was found in Ethiopia, and we believe it to be about 200,000 years ago. So in Homo sapiens, you start to see less pronounced brow ridges, the flatter face. They tend to be more slender. And we believe that Homo sapiens developed out of Africa. So if you follow these kind of DNA migration patterns, most of them can be traced back to this region in Africa. We do know that most Americans and Europeans have a shared lineage, and it's likely that they were able to come across on the land bridge that forms between these continents in the winter. And then there's several lineages that we believe branched out of Africa early on. And it just goes to show that we really don't have a complete picture yet. As recent as 2015, we discovered a entirely new species, Homo naledi. And when we discover a species doesn't necessarily mean that it was a more recent species. So we're still figuring out where humans came from and what species we would be most recently related to, and even what other species of Homo even existed.